r/ProRevenge.
A dangerous game. This is my first post here. I decided that this may be another method of catharsis for me. I do have many stories peppered throughout my life that I want to share, but this was the first one that came to mind. This one has to do with my childhood and dealing with a psychotic and racist aunt and uncle. When I was a child, I was often assaulted and bullied for being a mixed blood kid, mulatto, by both my own family and kids in school. There are many things that my aunt and uncle did to me and got away with, which I will share the highlights of later. This story, however, is not one of those. My uncle was the alpha tormentor between the two. Both my aunt and uncle still lived with my grandparents, so there was no way to avoid them because I had to go to my grandparents' house after school while my dad was still at work. My uncle liked to play games with me in order to turn me into a fearless pit dog, as he put it, when I asked him one day why he was tormenting me so much. When he said that, the fact he was being completely honest as well as smiling about it, I decided right then and there that this man was my enemy and would have to deal with him accordingly. If he wanted a pit dog, he was going to get one. After overcoming my shock of his honest answer, I said, "Fang you, uncle. Just fang you." One of the games that he loved to play was chasing me down the road to my grandparents' house, which felt like an honest attempt to literally run me over. He'd always do this as I was walking home to my grandparents' house after school. Luckily, most times he ended up just chasing me off the road. The game started like this. He would stop his truck at the end of the road that my grandparents' place was on and rev the engine of his truck 3 times. That was the signal that the game was about to begin. After the 3rd rev, he would hit the gas and come screaming down the road toward me. I would have to leap off the road to avoid being ran over. After at least a couple of months of dealing with this, I had enough. I was tired of feeling afraid of walking down that street. I thought it over for a while before I decided I would get revenge. On the days when I wasn't being chased, I started to count how many steps it took to get to an old stump on the side of the road that was hidden by briars. I'd walk backwards just so I could add the distance between the end of that road and the stump so I would know when to run. 17 steps. It would take 17 steps from the time he would start roaring down that road at me to get to that stump. The day finally came about a couple weeks later. When I heard his truck, I wasn't afraid anymore, I was angry. As per normal, he revved his engine 3 times then gunned it around the corner. I waited until he was close enough before I ran as fast as I could up the side of the road and behind the stump, throwing my backpack into a deer trail I could jump into in case my plan failed, then quickly turned towards the stump and the oncoming truck bearing down on me. As expected, he followed me up the side of the road, too fixed on me to pay attention to where he was going. The next few moments were beautiful. The briars parted like the Red Sea, and to my delight I saw his eyes go wide as he realized what he was about to smash into. He yanked the steering wheel to the left, his front right tire going over the stump, which launched him into the air. As he flew past me, I could see the look of terror on his face, and grinning madly, I began to shout insults at him as his truck nearly flipped in midair. Instead of flipping, the truck roughly came back down on 4 wheels and he continued down the road to my grandparents' house and parked in the gravel driveway. I grabbed my backpack, ran up the trail and hid. I didn't come out until after dark when my dad came to get me. I knew the sound of my dad's car, a Datsun B210, so when I heard him coming up the road, I immediately came out, waved him down, and quickly jumped into the passenger seat. My dad asked me concerned as to why I was out there. At first I just kept telling him over and over that we needed to just go straight home and under no circumstances go to my grandparents' house. When my dad kept asking why, I finally told him everything that happened. Without another word, he turned the car around, silently fuming, and drove us home. I don't know if my dad talked to my uncle after what happened, but what I do know is that game never happened again. That game, at least. Edit. Thank you for the awards and opinions about what happened. I appreciate it immensely.
A response to the post.
This one actually gives me flashbacks. About 50 years ago, my brother and I, then age about 12 and 10, were just walking along the street where we lived. Some random crazy lady drove by, then turned around and started to chase us with her car. There was that moment of WTF, back before people said WTF, when we realized she was headed straight for us. Fortunately, there was a section of road that was closed with a big pile of gravel. We ran to the top of it because we knew her car couldn't drive up it. She waited at the bottom with a big grin, totally pleased with herself for teaching kids not to be pedestrians, I guess. Finally, she drove away, and we were able to get home. So yeah, nutcases who want to teach you a lesson are real.